Okay, I want you to try a little thought experiment with me.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine you're a film producer. It's the late 70s. You're in your big Hollywood office, and a director walks in to pitch you the next big thing.
Okay, I'm with you.
He says, I have a vision for a movie that captures the entire scope of modern civilization. You lean forward, you ask, great, who's the star? De Niro, Pacino. And he says, no actors.
Right. It's usually the moment you call security.
Exactly. But you're polite, so you ask, okay, no stars, so what's the script like? He says, 0 dialogue, no narration.
No words at all.
Not a single one. You're getting nervous now, so you ask, well, surely there's a plot, a chase scene. And he just smiles and says, just images of clouds, traffic, and hot dogs set to repetitive organ music for 86 minutes.
It sounds like financial suicide. I mean, it's the kind of project that gets laughed out of the room before the guy even sits down.
And yet, that impossible pitch became one of the most defining works of the 20th century. We are talking, of course, about the 1982 film Koyaanisqatsi.
A film that is, well, it's so much more than just a film. It's a cultural monolith, really. Directed by Godfrey Reggio, but you can't separate his visuals from the score by Philip Glass.
Oh, not at all. They're like two halves of the same brain. And to help us navigate this strange, amazing, wordless masterpiece, we are digging into a really fascinating column. It's called Apocalypse of Image and Sound by MMR, published just this past November.
And this source is a goldmine because it frames Koyaanisqatsi not as a documentary, which sort of implies it's teaching you facts.
Right, like a nature show.
Exactly. It frames it as a visual audio philosophy book.
I love that description. A visual audio philosophy book. It's just you have to, read the movie with your eyes and ears, not just watch it.
That is precisely the mission for today's deep dive. We're not just reviewing some vintage art house flick. We are exploring how this milestone of late 20th century art fused minimalist music with time-lapse imagery to show the absolute madness of the world we've built.
And the craziest part, which the source mentions, is that even though this movie is over 40 years old, it feels like a mirror to our lives right now.
Oh, yeah.
If anything, the reflection in that mirror is maybe even sharper today than it was back in 1982.
That's the scary part, isn't it? The world is caught up to the art, that frantic pace Reggio was warning us about. That's just a normal Tuesday for us.
Yeah.
But before we get to the existential dread, we have to tackle the first hurdle of this movie. The name.
Koyaanisqatsi. It is. It's a mouthful. It looks like a typo on the poster. I remember the first time I saw it, I had no idea where to even put the stress.
You're not alone. It's a Hopi word. And Reggio didn't pick it to be pretentious. He picked it because English, and really most modern languages, didn't have a single word that captured the specific feeling of wrongness he was trying to get out.
So let's break down the translation. The one you hear most often is life out of balance.
That's the headline definition, yeah. But our source material digs a little deeper into the Hopi dictionary and finds some nuances that are, well, they're much heavier. It can also mean crazy life, life in turmoil, or life disintegrating.
Life disintegrating. Wow, that feels so active. It's not just that things are messy, it's that the world is literally falling apart in real time. It's like a diagnosis.
It is a diagnosis. But there's one last definition the source points out that changes the whole tone. It can also mean a state of life that calls for another way of living.
See, that changes everything.
It does.
Crazy life is just a complaint, but a state of life that calls for another way of living. That's a call to action. It's saying, this machine is broken, so we have to build a new one.
Precisely. It moves the film from being just cynical to being urgent. Reggio was using this word as a symbol for our whole society, that gnawing feeling that despite all our progress, we were heading towards a cliff.
And the brilliance of his strategy was to make that point without saying a single word.
Think about how bold that is. I mean, usually in a documentary about society, you have a narrator, right? A voice of God telling you.
Look at this traffic jam, isn't it dehumanizing?
Yes. The narrator is a safety net. They tell you how to feel. Reggio just rips that safety net away. By removing language, the film forces you to engage directly with the conflict on the screen.
You have to do the work.
You have to sit with the tension between nature and technology, silence and noise. You do the intellectual work.
The source describes the opening scene, and it sounds like the perfect primer for that work. It starts in the wilderness.
Yes, these ancient red rock paintings. It's silent. It's completely still. And then, so slowly, this low-pitched chorus starts chanting that one word.
Koyaanisqatsi.
It's almost subterranean. It sets this tone of, like, reverence, but also a warning. It feels like the earth itself is speaking.
Now, moving from that ancient silence to the actual production, this was not a Hollywood blockbuster. The source really emphasizes this was a complete independent production.
Which is a very polite way of saying they were broke and breaking all the rules.
Right.
No corporate money, no state funding. They had huge problems because nobody understood what they were trying to do.
But the source says being independent was their superpower. Because they didn't have a studio breathing down their necks, they could use a creative process that was, well, completely backwards.
It's one of my favorite details. In 99% of filmmaking, the workflow is shoot the film, edit the film, and then hire a composer to write music that fits the scene.
Right. The music is an accessory. Sad scene. Cue the violins.
Here it was the reverse. For many sections, Philip Glass wrote the music first.
Wait, so the editors were cutting the film to match the beat?
Exactly. Reggio has this great quote, "I edited with music and composed with images." The editors were cutting to the specific rhythms of the score, and that created this unique emotional syntax. The cuts happen on the musical changes.
That explains why it feels so hypnotic. You're not watching a movie with a soundtrack. You're watching a visualization of a symphony.
They are completely locked together. Which brings us to the engine of this whole film, the music of Philip Glass.
Okay, we have to geek out on this for a second. Minimalism is a term people throw around, usually when they want to complain that something's repetitive. But in the context of Glass, it's a very complex structural idea.
It is. And the source breaks down the mechanics of his style, specifically something called the additive process.
Okay, explain that in plain English. Because when you hear it, it just sounds like loops, but it's not really looping, is it?
Not in the traditional sense, no. A loop stays the same. The additive process is about growth. So imagine a musical phrase with 3 notes. Let's just count them. 1, 2, 3. You play that a few times.
Okay, 1, 2, 3. Got it.
Then you add a note. It becomes 1, 2, 3, 4. You play that. Then you add another. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then maybe you drop the first note. So it's 2, 3, 4, 5.
So it's constantly shifting under your feet. It's like a staircase that keeps adding steps while you're climbing it.
That is a perfect analogy. The source calls this the illusion of time. Because it's repetitive, your brain registers it as static, like you're standing still. But because of those tiny changes, the piece is actually writing forward.
It's a paradox. You feel like you're hovering, but you're also moving at 1,000,000 miles an hour.
Which is the perfect sonic metaphor for modern life, right? We feel stuck in a routine, but life is just flying by.
And it connects perfectly to the visuals, the time-lapse.
Exactly. When you speed up a camera on a highway, you are manipulating time. You're compressing hours into seconds. Glass's music does to your ears what the camera is doing to your eyes.
That's a brilliant connection. It's not just an aesthetic choice, it's a philosophical one.
And there's a spiritual layer here, too. The source highlights that Glass's real breakthrough came from working with Ravi Shankar, the Indian sitar master, and studying Tibetan vocal music.
Right. In those Eastern traditions, repetition isn't about being bored. It's about trance. It's a mantra.
Yes. The expert in the source notes that this turns the film into a prayer without prayer. It uses the mechanics of religious chanting to put the viewer into this trance state so they can just observe reality without judgment.
And to capture that reality, Reggio needed a cinematographer who was basically willing to reinvent the camera. Enter Ron Frick.
The unsung hero of this project.
Oh.
If you've seen Baraka or Samsara, you know his work. But on Koyaanisqatsi, he was inventing this visual language as he went.
The source mentions he had to develop time-lapse techniques that were super rare at the time. I think we take this for granted now. I mean, I can lean my iPhone against a coffee cup and get a cool time-lapse of a sunset.
We do it effortlessly.
Yeah.
But in 1980, this was heavy engineering. Frick was building custom motors, custom intervalometers. He was hacking cameras to move, millimeters at a time over hours.
So when we see those iconic shots of city traffic turning into streams of light...
Like blood in veins.
Yeah, that wasn't a digital effect. That was mechanics.
Pure physics and optics. And they arranged these images into a very specific narrative arc. The source outlines a diagram of civilization that the film follows.
So it's not just a random montage, there's a story.
A very clear descent. It starts with nature, rocks, clouds, the ocean. That's the baseline. Then we see destruction and consumption, mining trucks, explosions. This transitions into the heart of the movie, the machine society.
This is the sequence that haunts me, the comparison shots. You see hot dogs on a conveyor belt, then people on an escalator, then cars on a highway.
It's the visual equation of the industrial age. The film is saying the hot dogs, the cars, and the humans are all just units in the same flow. We're all being processed.
And the music in that section, the grid, is just relentless. It's so fast and anxious.
It mimics the pulse of the city. It creates a physical sensation of anxiety. You feel the machine society in your gut, and that acceleration leads to the final stage, collapse.
But before we get there, the source points out a key moment of humanity in the middle of all that, the face close-ups.
Yes, this is crucial. In the middle of all this high-speed blurring, the film suddenly slows way down. We see these portraits of people in New York. They're just staring into the lens. The source suggests, this is the film, asking, is there still a person inside this machine?
It feels confrontational, like the movie is staring back at you.
And that leads to the ultimate confrontation, the climax. The source describes the finale as the perfect symbol for the whole film.
The rocket launch?
It's an Atlas Centaur rocket. We watch it launch. The music is soaring, almost religious. It looks like the ultimate triumph of technology. And then it explodes.
But it's not an action movie explosion.
No, it's a tragedy in slow motion. We see a flaming engine just tumbling through the blue sky. The camera tracks one piece of debris falling, spinning, falling for a long, long time. And the music stops.
Silence.
Just the wind. It's a picture of total decay.
It feels like the ultimate game over. We built this Tower of Babel and it collapsed.
That's the cynical reading. But the source offers a different interpretation, one I find much more compelling. The author argues this isn't just the end. It is a blank space for rebirth.
A blank space for rebirth. That sounds optimistic.
Well, think about the audience's experience. You've just spent 80 minutes being bombarded by noise and speed. Then, suddenly, silence. The source says that when the noise stops, the audience can finally hear the world.
So the crash is necessary. The life out of balance corrects itself through failure, and the silence is the reward.
Exactly. It's a reset button. It's Reggio saying, okay, this way didn't work. Now we have a quiet space to dream up something else.
And he had more dreaming to do, because I didn't realize this. Koyaanisqatsi is just part one. It's a trilogy.
A Qatsi trilogy, yeah. He spent the next 20 years exploring these themes.
So if the first one is life out of balance, what comes next?
The second film, from 1988, is Koyaanisqatsi. The source explains this means life and transformation, or more critically, parasitic life.
Parasitic life. That implies feeding off of something else.
It shifted the lens from the industrial north to the global south. It looks at how wealthy nations essentially feed off the labor and resources of the developing world.
And the third one?
Koyaanisqatsi. That came out much later, 2002. It means life as war.
Feels pretty appropriate for the early 2000s.
It dealt with digital technology. It argued that technology has become our new environment, and that relationship is hostile. The source suggests that together, these three films reconstruct a kind of modern myth.
An incredible arc, from nature to industry to the digital void. But I want to zoom out. We're talking about a pretty avant-garde film from 1982. For someone who loves movies but maybe sticks to, Christopher Nolan, why does this matter? How does this impact the stuff they actually watch?
You might not have seen Koyaanisqatsi, but I guarantee you have seen its children. The source argues this film established the whole genre of the visual audio philosophy book.
So who are the descendants?
You just mentioned Christopher Nolan. Look at Interstellar.
Oh, one of my favorites.
Think about that docking scene. The spinning spacecraft, the scale of space, and that overwhelming rhythmic organ score by Hans Zimmer. That is pure glass and Reggio DNA. That sense of the sublime beauty and terror mixed together, that comes straight from Koyaanisqatsi.
I can hear it now. That relentless building repetition. Zimmer was definitely channeling glass there.
Or look at Terrence Malick's The Tree of Life.
Yeah.
That 20-minute sequence showing the creation of the universe, the dinosaurs, the nebulas. That's non-verbal cosmic storytelling. It's a direct homage.
And the source mentions the music world was changed, too.
Oh, huge impact. Bands like Sigur Rós, composers like Max Richter or Brian Eno. If you listen to any kind of ambient post-rock, you are hearing the echoes of this film.
What about visual culture? The source brings up VJ culture.
Right. Think about an EDM festival. Behind the DJ, there are massive screens playing trippy, time-lapse visuals of cities perfectly synced to the beat. That aesthetic music visualized didn't really exist in the mainstream before this.
So Koyaanisqatsi basically invented the visual language of the club.
It predicted the MTV era. And in a deeply ironic way, it kind of predicted the TikTok era. We love watching short, mesmerizing loops of visual information set to music.
That is ironic. A movie warning us that our lives are too fast helped create the visual style for the fastest media we have.
We consume the aesthetic, but I'm not sure we learned the lesson.
That is a sobering thought. We have really covered some ground today. From Hopi linguistics to time-lapse cameras, from the assembly line to an exploding rocket.
It's a journey from the ancient past to a potential future.
And it all keeps coming back to that one concept, Koyaanisqatsi, life out of balance.
Which leads us to the final thought from our source material. The author, MMR, leaves us with a challenge. He says the film isn't just looking at the world, it is looking at us.
The mirror again?
Koyaanisqatsi is a mirror image of ourselves, that's the quote. When you watch those cars rushing on the highway, or the people staring blankly on the street, you aren't supposed to judge them. You are supposed to recognize them.
You're supposed to see yourself in the rush.
It forces the question, are you living a life out of balance? When you turn this off and look at your phone or sit in traffic or rush to your next meeting, do you feel that disintegration? Do you feel that speed?
That is a question that might keep me staring at the ceiling tonight.
Yeah.
But maybe that's the point. You have to be uncomfortable to realize you need a new way of living.
Exactly. Sometimes you have to stop the noise to actually hear the world.
Well, on that existential note, we want to thank you for taking this deep dive with us. It's heavy material, but I think it's essential.
Thanks for having me. It's always a trip.
And thank you for listening. Keep looking, keep listening, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.